Hey folks, Eko here with dev stream number 6. This stream was focused on random world generation and gave us our first look into seeing how the biomes and cities look with the new tech in place. In this highlight, I'll break apart the building blocks of random world gen and show you how they all fit together. If you find this valuable, click subscribe and join me on my journey. Let's get started with some of the biggest building blocks in the new system. So the first concept we want to talk about is themes and themed townships. This is going to be the container in which everything else will be built inside of.
And this is one of the themed towns, and one of the things in the new random gen that we also allow is we used to have just the cities, towns, and country towns. Well, now we allow you to make any township you want. You can make a new one of your own style, your own tiles, your own districts, all of it. And you can control the size of it, how big it would, like how many tiles total it should have in it, and then it'll organically grow out from that.
So there was a lot to unpack in that statement, but in general, what we're going to have is a system where you go from townships that are going to have a certain theme to them that will break down into a certain number of tiles that will then break down into POIs, which will have one more layer inside of them called parts. This is a new feature that's almost like a mini POI that can be placed inside a POI. As we move through this, I'll pull additional quotes to help explain the relationship between those different components. But in the meanwhile, Lathan did a quick stop by so we could see the new Trader Wreck model in here.
Hey, jackass, can I lighten that backpack up for you?
So here's our first in-game view of everybody's favorite trader. Seems as friendly as ever. Let's pivot away from this Western-themed township and let Nathan show us some of the other districts. The first one is one that you would see as you enter a city.
So we have this district we put around the outside edges of a city called a rural district, and it has like looser fitting houses and looser street layouts and like a bunch of stuff like you'd find at the edge of a town, like old town type of stuff.
Not sure why they didn't just go with suburbs for this district, but there you are. You've got kind of this ring around the cities that's going to have more of the suburban area where everything's a little bit more spread out. And it'll give you a natural progression as you're heading into the city. I'll be curious as we see more of how the themes function in relation to this to see, you know, in the suburbs, do we have an army of minivans hanging out or other defining characteristics of the district. The next area they showed off was the downtown district, and this is the one that I was personally most excited to see. I love the look and feel of the rural and some of the wilderness districts, but I don't feel like they're going to quite change how we play like this will. Just watching Lathan drive around here, one of the things that comes to mind for me is how much you're going to have more situational awareness. There's a lot of corners and places that you could get stuck in. To this end, I'm going to make the prediction that you're going to see a massive increase in the use of parkour in Alpha 20.
Yeah, and the downtown areas, a lot of the stuff is like really tightly packed, I mean, as you can see. And there's some areas, like hidden areas in some of the tiles to, like, for exploration purposes and whatnot, but you don't necessarily see them as we're driving around right now.
So I love the idea of having new places to explore and finding some hidden Easter eggs here and there. And I know personally I'm a big base builder and I like doing that aspect of the game, but this has me really curious to move around the map more and possibly look at living right in the heart of a city. One of the other aspects which was a common theme throughout this dev stream was the impact to modders and what they'll be able to do.
And as you know, modders, y'all can add a new commercial intersection 02, 03, O infinity, and have different variants to spawn in those positions. Like if it's a cross intersection, then you can have all those, like a bunch of variants for that, or a straight, you can have a bunch of variants for that. So like, as the modders get more into this and start making more, and we start putting out more vanilla ones, like this will just get more and more different every time you play.
Yeah, the more tiles, the more random it'll be. So, and there's like, can add as many as we want, and you guys can add as many as you want. It's pretty much infinite.
Listening to this dev stream, you can tell there was a lot of thought that went into both modders and future expandability of the game. So here's another city district. This one's in the winter biome. Check out that overpass that they put in place. That's a perfect example of how elevation is going to play a key role in these new cities. It's going to shift not only how we fight zombies, but how we build and live within these cities. In regards to elevation, a lot of the new POIs are also going to have sewers underneath them. This gives a whole new explorable area that we just haven't had in the past, and they've talked about long-term looking at having these be able to connect in a system that would span the entirety of a city.
So, something to bring up with this is that, yes, the tiles, although not all of them have, tons of explorable space, they are kind of like real prefab content, just like the POIs are, in the sense that we do have spaces underground or in certain areas that you can explore. And that was something that, Brad and I had talked about early on. Like, how cool would it be if you're running in an alley and then you can go down underground or do this thing, and there's a little bit of exploration available.
Yeah, I'm loving this concept. Also, think about tossing this in with Feral Sense, wandering through those sewers. That's going to be scary as hell. Let's head back out through the rural district on the way to the wasteland. Check out the water there that we've got over on the roadside. And then along each of the edges of the road, you start to see these ditches. These little elements that you add on just really add into the realism of how the world looks and feels. Speaking of realism, Lathan did get a little dose of realism as he was heading towards the edge of the map here, not paying attention and just kind of wandering and enjoying the sights.
So
Oh god. Okay, there is something telling me. Oh god.
Ooh, radiation.
Now that we're mildly irradiated, let's head over to the wasteland.
It's just a waste of land, everybody. See what I did there?
So dad jokes aside, I think both Lathan and myself were a little bit surprised at just how barren the wasteland was. One of the things that we were promised from the earlier dev streams was that there would be a difficulty modifier associated with the wasteland, and this being the most difficult of the biomes. The idea would be that this would be the high risk, high reward area, but if there's no POIs in the area, that's going to be slightly problematic. Hopefully this was just a fluke of this world gen and we'll see more populated wasteland in the future. So the last thing I want to hit on before jumping over to tiles, POIs, and parts is the new gateway concept.
This is a gateway. It's basically what leads into a town from a highway. And I got like a slight bug over there on the top, but
Yeah, it's fine.
you can see where the highway will connect to it, and on either end, so the other direction behind you, there's highway there too. And that's what leads into your towns. And the traders will always spawn there, and that basically keeps it so if you find a trader, when you get different kind of quests, they're going to lead you someplace that's not super far off.
So really critical, this has several implications for us. The first of which is that quests won't be 2, 3, 4 kilometers away, any craziness like that. Additionally, this means that there's going to be a guaranteed trader in each major township that we see. And lastly, following the highways will give us just one more method of finding the new traders in different areas. So going back to that deconstruction of the world gen, we started off with the townships and the districts that we've seen, and now we're going to take a look at the individual tiles. It's a number of these tiles that make up those districts or townships, and you can see them laid out as such. Each of those squares represents a space where a POI will render, and it will be based on the district and the theme of the area that this tile inhabits. So you can see how this all stacks together to create a lot of variation. You've got various districts, which are going to have various tile types depending upon the district, and then you're going to have different POIs that inhabit the tile. And then we get to parts.
Yeah, the car accident part spawner, click on it, they're in that list. And there it shows you, okay, the marker rotations, the spawn chance, which is, 20% spawn chance. Its position, any tags it may have, which we're expanding on that. And then its group name, which group name's used to decide a lot of things. If there's more than one thing in one group, it'll only spawn one of those things in that group if it's a part spawner.
So the parts are a new type of POI that can be placed directly inside of a tile, but additionally, these parts can also be placed inside a POI.
And these are the parts, so like whenever you're editing a prefab, like a tile for random gen, you can add these part spawn markers, and you pick which POI it is, which is a part _, and you can give it a chance to spawn, and it will like possibly spawn in that spot. And if you have multiples under the same grouping, it'll pick one or the other. So the first one that spawns, it just escapes out and doesn't try to spawn anymore from that group. So you can allow a lot of variation in little areas.
So essentially what this creates is a hierarchy of variation, starting from township, going to district, down to tile, and then to POI, and finally to parts. And then even inside of parts, it sounds like they have another level of variation, because you can have groupings of parts so that each time that you place that marker in a POI or tile, that it won't be the same. One example of how they use these parts will be to randomize the crops you see in a farm.
So there's some farms that have their own parts inside of the POI. We ended up using them in farm POIs for like the crops.
So here's one more example of parts being used in the city to provide additional elevation shifts. It's a little strange to see inside the tile editor, but essentially what we would have is a destroyed chunk of the road with construction machinery inside of it. This will make a lot of sense to give the roads, a little bit more characteristics instead of just being perfectly straight and level throughout the entire city. So how do we kick this process off, and what does it look like when we go to build a new random world?
So in this window, we have the old school stuff like the world seed and the size like we used to. And now there's options for towns, wilderness, POIs, etc. So you can choose between different world sizes, like how many towns you'd want. And it's kind of like few, default, many, and none. Like those are your options on most of these. So like you could set towns to none and then just generate a map that's just nothing but wilderness POIs.
So we'll definitely have more control than we currently have in Alpha 19, but I was kind of hoping for some of the height map and district map options that we have over in KingGen.
KingGen allows you to create a custom map based on an image you provide. Any chance to do this? Currently there's no way to do that. We're using a stamp system, not an overall image based setup. I mean, it could in the future, but then I'd have to go through and support all the different things that would happen when you use something like that, as opposed to the stamping system we have in place.
So I can't say I'm surprised given the complexities of the new world gen, but I was really hoping that maybe we'd have that option. One of the other big questions we've all had in regards to random world gen is how much damn time is this going to take? In Alpha 19, some of the larger maps can easily take over an hour to gen.
Well, someone asked last year, it was mentioned that the goal for random gen was 1 minute per 1K by 1K world. How close did we get to that? Well, today generated a 6K in 4 minutes and an 8K in 6. So I'd say we're ahead of the desire.
And for a little bit more proof, we actually got to see them do this live on the stream.
Hey, generation complete. 5
Hey,
minutes
listen.
and 46
seconds.
So given that Lathan was streaming this while also generating this is a pretty good indicator that it looks like they've hit their mark of 1 minute per K easily. So to wrap up this highlight, I'm going to show you the updated map review function and then an amazing new feature that's being planned for Alpha 21. If this update's been helpful for you, get a little crazy and click that subscribe button and go check out some of my other content. I have a unique take on showcasing Horde-based designs and a story-driven playthrough like you have never seen called the Broken Shard series. So watching Lathan pivot around the map, this is a massive improvement from what we have in Alpha 19. I love how you can clearly see the elevation and how the towns are kind of nested in between the mountains. This just gives you a better understanding of the map that you just generated. So on to that juicy little nugget that they teased at for Alpha 21.
Hey, look.
And also, one thing, it's not an A20. It's something that's a pet project, brainchild of mine that I'm trying to work on. Is making that part spawner allow us to have different shapes and basically a bounding area that says, hey, spawn a part, and it's like maybe the entrance to a cave, and it spawns a POI that's just an entrance to a cave, and under it has a part that says, okay, I go down, I go left, I go right. And then that part itself has more parts on it that says I'll either go this way or that way, and it'll like lay out this entire level.
So I think he could have described that a little bit better, but what I take from that is that he's essentially using the new parts system to create procedurally generated dungeons in Alpha 21. Let me know down in the comments if that was your interpretation, as well as anything else you saw from the highlights that was exciting for you. I'd like to sincerely thank everyone who subscribed and joined me on this crazy journey. It's been a blast putting together these updates, and I can't wait to get my hands on Alpha 20. Take care, everybody. Eko out.